This is the first in a series of videos that I'm going to do, which is going to be a review and analysis of each of the Alien films within the Alien franchise. That might exclude the Alien vs Predator films because I don't really consider them canon, but I might do them for fun as well. Anyway, I'm starting off with Alien 3, and you might think, why am I starting off with the third film in the franchise and not the first? Well, several reasons. First of all, Alien 3 is the most divisive of all the films. There are people who absolutely love it, and there are people who absolutely detest it. It is, by association, therefore, the most interesting one to talk about in a lot of ways. It's also the one that had the most checkered of production histories, so you've got different versions of the film, and again that adds to the ability to talk about it. And also it's the one that I've watched most recently. I've watched the theatrical and the assembly cut. So Alien 3, released in 1992, directed by David Fincher. David Fincher, of course, would go on to direct films such as Seven, Panic Room and The Social Network. The Alien franchise, if you don't know, now I'm assuming you probably do know what it is, but for those who don't, the Alien franchise it's a science fiction horror franchise about an alien organism who comes into contact with human beings, and those human beings usually don't live. They normally are dispatched in some way by the alien organism. Now that really does the series a huge discredit, because it sounds like I'm talking about something which is just a bare bones, almost slasher film, which I'm not. So don't worry about it. We're going to get into this in a lot more depth and give the films, you know, their due. So released in 1992, Alien 3 begins with Ripley, the main character, who is a female officer coming back from the previous mission that she carried out in Aliens, and she's in hypersleep, which is a sort of form of hibernation to allow people to travel great distances throughout the stars. So as we can tell, I should have said, the film is set in the distant future, and a fire breaks out on this ship while she's in hibernation, and it jettisons her body in a life pod. The life pod then lands on this all but abandoned planet. Now on this planet there are a few residents, and those residents are prisoners, part of a prison colony which has pretty much been shut down, but quite a few of them, I think about 20 or 30 of them, have decided to stay and just keep the place ticking over. There's a factory, there's a forge there where they spend their days sort of maintaining the equipment and things like that. But they are still prisoners, and they are brutal prisoners. They're people that are guilty of murder and rape. And Ripley finds herself amongst these prisoners. She's the only woman there, so obviously there's a question of rape, which is brought up within the film, and there's the question of her safety in general. So as she's trying to come to terms with what's happened to her, they start to realise that there was an alien on board the life pod, and it started to kill the prisoners. And the film plays out as Ripley tries to lead these prisoners to try and kill this alien, because the alien organism is so dangerous that they don't want it to fall in the wrong hands, and they learn that a company from Earth has sent out a ship to the planet to try and retrieve the alien, so they know they have to kill it before the company gets there. Otherwise the company wants to research the alien and bring it back alive to Earth, and that could feasibly result in the entire human species being wiped out if things went wrong. So that, in a nutshell, well, it wasn't much of a nutshell, maybe I went on a bit, but that's the sort of plot of the film without giving any sort of spoilers away. It's a very interesting film. It's what I would call a personal apocalyptic film. It has a suffocating atmosphere of impending doom, but it tends to be personal doom. But there is the question of a possible apocalypse for the human race if these alien creatures ever find their way to a human population. A lot of people hate Alien 3 for a variety of different reasons, which I will go into, but there are a lot of things about the film that can be admired. So first off, the film is brilliantly directed by David Fincher. It has a similar tone and visual style to it that you see in his next film, Seven, the film that sort of made him famous. It's got a wonderful score. The cast are phenomenal. They're not so well known, but you have people that are certainly rated as truly great actors, like Pete Postlethwaite, who's seen as, you know, by many as, I think it was Steven Spielberg that said that he thought that he was the greatest actor of his generation. You have Brian Glover, who's another fantastic actor. You have Charles Dance, who's phenomenal. You obviously have Sigourney Weaver in the lead role as Ripley, and yeah, there are loads of great character actors within this film. The biggest problem with the film is the plot, with regards to the fact that when they were making it, they didn't have a script, so they were doing the script as they went along, and as we know, most films that are made like that tend to fail. I think the best example of it is probably, if you look at Pirates of the Caribbean 3, it's really just an absolute train wreck of a movie, and they didn't have a script. They were writing it as they were shooting it. There are some examples like Casablanca, which didn't have a script as they were making it, but you know, that they ended up being a good film. But most of the films that don't have a script locked down when they go into shooting tend to end up badly. And Alien 3, to me, it's actually quite a surprise that the film turned out as well as it did, considering. There are certain reasons why people hate it. People tend to hate it because it does something, and this is before we get into the spoilers, I will say when we're going to do that. It does something which it disregards the previous film, Aliens. Aliens spends a lot of time building up a certain situation for a bunch of characters, and then it completely disregards all of that. And Aliens ends on a very positive note, and it's almost as if all of that struggle was for nothing, because Alien 3 is a brutal movie. It is so downbeat, it's so depressing, that a lot of people feel that they really were shortchanged with it. In fact, James Cameron, who made Aliens, felt that Alien 3 was a slap in his face because he felt they disregarded everything that he had done in the previous film. And I do believe that, you know, if you make a sequel, you should try not to affect the viewing of the previous films in any way. That means you don't, what they call, retcon a part of the film so that all of a sudden you re-explain something else in a different way that happened previously in another movie. And you don't do things that sort of make take away the impact of the previous films, and I think some people felt that Alien 3 did do that. I think James Cameron certainly did. The funny thing is with Alien 3 is that if you've seen Alien, Alien is not necessarily a depressing or downbeat film, but it's grim and gritty in a way that Alien 3 very much feels like a sister film. It feels like a natural progression of that. If there hadn't been aliens in the middle, you would have probably accepted Alien 3 much more as a continuation of that story. But instead we got Aliens, which was an absolute roller coaster of a movie, and Alien 3 to many felt like such an utter disappointment. I know watching the Cinephiles that Mike Folks thinks that it's the biggest disappointment that he's ever had watching a film. I think if you look at Alien 3 on its own merit, as a standalone movie, I think it's actually very good. If you look at it as an entry into the Alien franchise, then yeah, you'll probably find that you think it's a failure, because it does disregard what went before it in a lot of ways. There are other problems with it. One of the biggest problems I have with it is the special effects used for the Alien. The alien suit that they use for it is really great. I think I really like the tone of it, the colour of it. It's a bit different. I really like it, but I think they have these parts of the film where it's like a rod puppet that they're using, and they're trying to composite the images, and I don't think the compositing is very good in this film. It's off. It's not quite right. So the alien at times looks really small and out of scale and not really threatening, and they linger too long on it in a few scenes, which is a shame, because there are moments in the film where the alien is actually really menacing and quite frightening. I think that most people, well, a lot of people find that there's a problem going back to this scenario where there's only one alien. You see, in the original film there was only one alien, and then in Aliens there was a whole hive of them, and then back in Alien 3 you're dealing with one alien again. But I don't think that's so much of a problem, because I think they did actually try to do something different, and that is one thing I will credit it with. Alien 3 is really different. It feels like they tried to do something that was a real departure from the other films, and I think that in its own way supported the sort of approach that James Cameron took, which was he went into Alien in a different direction. He built upon it. I think that's the only problem, is that Alien 3 feels like it doesn't build upon Aliens. It disregards it and then does its own thing, but at least it does its own thing. I think that, yeah, so I think the alien isn't as threatening as it could be because of a lot of the special effects, and there are some compositing problems, and there are some optical effects, especially in the final scene, which obviously I don't think I had enough time to complete, because it just looks a bit off. And you know, you can say, yeah, it's 1992, there wasn't a lot of CG going around at the time, but still you feel like it should have been better. Another issue that a lot of people have with the film is that all of the that's nuns. All of the convicts of the prison have shaved heads because of a lice problem on the planet, and a lot of people have a problem with that because they think it's difficult to tell throughout, you know, if you're looking at the prisoners, who is who, and I can understand that. It's a very dark film, and also the fact that they have really strong British accents, and they're all regional accents. It's not like a generic English accent, it's like different regions of, you know, there's like Liverpool, and you know, there's Yorkshire, and there's the south of England, you know, there are a lot of different accents in there. And I think, especially for an American audience who isn't used to that and isn't used to hearing those accents, it could look and sound really confusing as to who is who. And towards the conclusion of the film, there are scenes where there are loads of the prisoners running around being chased by the alien, and it's jumping from one prisoner to another, and it is difficult to see who is who. That is a problem as well, in that some of the characters just sort of disappear because of the way the film was cut. You see, David Fincher wanted the film to be cut in a certain way, and he didn't get that cut, and because of that there are whole subplots that were taken out, and you've got prisoners that just sort of all of a sudden disappear and you never see them again. You don't know what happened to them because the footage was cut out. So there is a lot to complain about with the film, but like I say, if you take the movie on its own, I think it works. I think actually one of the biggest problems I have with it is that there is a character as well that dies far too early in the movie, which I think makes absolutely no sense, because they spend a lot of time building this character up and then they just kill that character off, and it's just really pointless, absolutely pointless, and a huge mistake. To be a little bit more positive about it, you know, there is a lot to admire about Alien 3 in my opinion, and a lot of people I think have overlooked the film because it was such a disappointment for them, because it did disregard the previous film so much, and it was so bleak, so people did just sort of think, well, I'm not really interested in this film, so they sort of perhaps don't see the level of artistry that's in this film. I mean, the sets are really incredible. They really did create this world, this prison world really well. And like I said before, the cinematography is really great. There's a lot of low shots looking up at actors that's quite sort of unusual, and it gives the film its own visual style compared to the other two Alien films before it, which, you know, again, you have to, you know, applaud that it does sort of stand on its own 2 feet. I think there are some really great scenes in it, and I think it is an emotional film, but it is, the problem with it is that it's more emotionally draining than emotive, you know, as a film. And that's the biggest problem I have with it, is that I do feel, I feel like I'm totally drained after watching it, but, you know, there's little elation, you know, there's a little positivity that you can take out of the film. There's a little bit, I suppose, in the end, in the moral of the tale, but that's the biggest problem I have with it. That being said, in conclusion, I think that it's a much maligned movie. Try to judge it on its own, outside of the Alien franchise. Judge it on its own as a film, and I think, considering all the problems that took place with it, and apparently David Fincher had an absolute nightmare. In fact, it has nothing to do with the film now, which is a real shame, because I would love to see him go back and cut in all the things that he wants to do. It does work as a personal apocalyptic tale. It does work as a film in which there's nothing really quite like it. I think it has its own tone. I think the only place that you do see a similar tone again is in David Fincher's next film, Seven. So if anything, Seven sort of came out of this movie. It helped Fincher develop his own visual style. I think the characters in it are great. I think Ripley's story is heartbreaking. And I think there are a few little, there are some scary moments in it. But I think by this point a lot of the fear has been removed from the alien creature, because we know what it looks like so much, we know what we're dealing with, and they did try to do something slightly different with it, but the special effects they used for that I don't think completely worked, but the suit and makeup effects and stuff like that was, you know, they were great. So I would definitely recommend seeing it, but I would say, you know, watch it if watch it only after you've watched Alien and Aliens. There is an assembly cut which was first packaged with the quadrilogy box set, which is a brilliant box set, full of great documentaries about all of the films. And there was they packaged the director's cut of Alien with Alien, special edition with Aliens, and there's a director's cut of Alien Resurrection, the 4th film. But with Alien 3 what they had was an assembly cut, because he was the only director that never had anything to do with the box set, because David Fincher just doesn't want anything to do with Alien 3. Wasn't the film that he tried to make, because He felt, I think, that the producers, the studios got in his way, so I don't think he's proud of it. So what the assembly cut does is I think it introduces a lot of the stuff that people felt David Fincher wanted in it. So it's not a definitive director's cut. In fact, we can't get a definitive director's cut because David Fincher never filmed the all the stuff that he wanted to film. But the assembly cut adds about half an hour to the movie, and it fleshes out certain characters, which makes you feel more attached to them. There is a lot more footage on the surface of the planet, and there are alternate scenes. How the alien comes about is different, and you know, it is better, I think, than the theatrical in a lot of ways. The theatrical is obviously tighter, but the assembly cut does really fix a lot of the problems that are there. So watch the theatrical first, I would say, and then watch the assembly cut and see what you think of it. Bear in mind though, if you're watching it with the DVD box set, there are places where the audio isn't very good because the actors never got to do additional dialogue. But with the Blu-ray, apparently the actors have actually since came in and redone it so that it's like the finished product, which I would like to see because I've not seen that. So yeah, Alien 3 on its own, a very effective film, a very peculiar film, stands on its own. Definitely watch it. Let me know what you think about it, because there are people who hate it, people who love it, and I'd be really interested to hear what your thoughts are about it. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the film. I'm going to do some spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, switch off now, go and watch it, and then come back and watch the next bit of the video. You have been warned. Okay, so if you haven't already heard from me enough, which you probably have, this is now going to be a sort of little analysis of the film. I'm going to talk a lot about the spoilers and things that actually happened in the movie. So, the first things first, what I was alluding to in the sort of review part of this video. Yes, a lot of people hate the fact that Hicks and Newt, who are two of the main characters in Aliens, are just killed in the opening credits without even really seeing them. It just tells you that they died when the life pod crashed. Bishop as well, one of the main characters, who's the android, is sort of cast aside, although he does appear later on in the film, obviously, in one scene, and then Lance Henriksen, who plays Bishop, appears as the human who created him at the end of the film. A lot of people have problems with this. I personally, as an Alien fan, really have an issue with the fact that they killed off Newt and Hicks. You see, Ripley is set up in the second film where Ripley has lost everything because of what happened with that encounter. She's lost her daughter, and because she was in hibernation for 57 years, and there was only chance in Aliens that they find her. And in that time her daughter has died, grown old and died. So she's lost her daughter, she has no direction, nothing, and she decides to go back to the planet where they found the alien in Aliens, and she rescues this little girl who becomes a sort of surrogate daughter to her. And there is a Corporal Hicks, who's one of the Marines there. You can obviously see that they are going to be a family unit together. That's sort of alluded to, and you know, it's built up the whole film. That's why James Cameron was so annoyed at Alien 3, and I can totally understand why, because it just like, it was like, yeah, right, well, never mind the fact that it's all happy at the end of Aliens. We're starting off right from that point. There's an alien on board, and everybody dies apart from Ripley. And do you know what? Ripley's also going to have a queen alien inside her, and she's going to have to die as well. So it is completely and utterly bleak, and let's say it does undermine a lot of what happened in the Aliens, which has led a lot of people to actually disregard Alien 3 as canon. I don't really know if you can do that, but it is a real shame, because Hicks and Newt should have been a big part of the Alien franchise. And the next film, I think, should have been about them getting back to Earth and somehow the aliens have already gotten there and maybe sort of dealing with that or something. And Hicks and Newt being part of that, I think that would have worked. Or just do a third film in the Alien universe without Ripley in it. Let Ripley's story end there. That would have been great, you know, happy ending after everything she's been through. So that was disappointing. And I have to say, as an Alien fan, it does sort of grate with you. But that being said, like I've already said to you, I actually like Alien 3, especially the assembly cut. I think that there's you know, one thing that's always sort of bugged me about Alien 3, I was talking earlier on, was the Doctor, who they spend all this time in the film setting up that he's, you know, setting up his backstory about what happened to him, with how he became a prisoner, and then how, you know, once he served his time he decided to stay with the prisoners and all that sort of stuff. They set up his whole backstory. They make him, they give Ripley a real love interest, you know, because they actually sleep together, and then they just kill him right off. And I checked it, it's something like 40 odd minutes into the film, right? So like it's really not that far into, it's like about halfway through, and they just wipe this character out. That character should have been in the film till the last act at least, you know. And in fact it would have been far more powerful if it had been him as the Doctor who had to kill Ripley for her. You know, she asked one of the convicts to do it. You know, like it would have been much more interesting if it had to been him, you know, sort of tied into the backstory where the Doctor had like killed patients by accident, you know, and that's why he'd ended up a prisoner, then having to actually kill someone on purpose and, you know, go against the Hippocratic Oath and all that. I think that would have been really interesting, but no, they just wiped him out and took all that away. And also, you know, phenomenal actor, you know, and just phenomenal performance. It was just such a shame, such a wasted opportunity. And I think even on the DVD, one of the producers says, "Why did we kill him so early?" You know, it seems a bit silly, and it is silly, completely silly, complete waste, right? So you have that. You also have the fact that they took out the Golic subplot, which is the Paul McGann character. Don't want to really ruin it too much if you haven't seen the assembly cut, but that character that is, you know, in the straitjacket in the infirmary when the Doctor's killed, they actually managed to capture the alien at one point, and he actually lets it out, and he has this sort of relationship with the alien where he kind of worships it, and it's an interesting thing. They took that out, so he was one of the prisoners that I talked about who just sort of disappears and you never see or hear from him again. It's a bit sort of strange. There are some very atmospheric scenes which I really enjoyed, but are even better in the assembly cut, where the prisoners are going through the tunnels, lighting all the candles to make sure they can find their way back. I think stuff like that I really enjoyed, and I think in the assembly cut it was better. It was sort of better thought out and portrayed that they were in this massive complex. It wasn't as clear within the theatrical cut. So, you know, another problem I had, and it's one that a lot of people talk about, at the end of the film when the Lance Henriksen character, the supposedly the human who created Bishop, turns up. Aaron, or 85, played by Ralph Brown, he's great by the way in this. He, you know, hits him in the side of the head, and like it's like his ear is like coming right off, and it looks really silly, and it's a really dramatic moment when Ripley is, you know, throwing herself into the lead works, and it's like I don't know how he could have walked on the set and no one could have went, that looks really silly. You know, when he's got the makeup on, the prosthetic ear on, because I think it maybe slightly detracts from it. However, the only way to explain it is that, see, there's a strange thing. I'm convinced that Aaron, Ralph Brown's character, 85, says, you know, fucking android, and hits him, you know, with whatever it is he picks up. He hits him in the side of the head, and then Aaron gets killed. So that character sort of is he pretending to be an android? Is he pretending, sorry, to be a human to Ripley because they know that she's getting aversion towards androids because of what happened in Alien? Maybe. Is that why the ear's sort of hanging off like that and it looks really sort of fake because he's not human? It wouldn't make sense. That doesn't really make sense because you can kind of see red blood, and we know that the androids in the Alien universe have like white blood, and also his behaviour doesn't really sort of meld with that either. So the ear thing just looks kind of, you know, silly to me. I don't know. I just didn't really get it, and I don't really get it if he is an android because it's not really made that clear. I've already mentioned that a lot of people had problems with the all the prisoners looking too similar and sounding too similar, not really knowing who was who. I don't think that's really a problem, but what I will say is that I think that some of the prisoners could have been developed better, and they could have focused maybe on just 2 or 3 of them. I think it would have been more effective. I love the Morse character in Alien 3. He's the only person who survives, and in fact when I was younger I wrote a treatment for what I thought Alien 4 would be, and Alien 4 followed him, going back to like being taken. The only reason he's taken alive by the company is that they want to question him and then they'll kill him, but when they take him to this ship and when they're trying to question him, alien breaks out and then he lies about knowing stuff about it to try and save his own bacon. Anyway, I thought it would have been interesting to have followed him in the Alien franchise because he's a really funny character, but he is essentially, you know, he's obviously done bad things to be there, and, you know, sort of dealing with that would have been interesting. Anyway, you're not interested to hear about my fan fiction ideas. It's all about Alien 3. I think he was a really interesting character. I liked Morse a lot. I think the Charles S. Dutton character, who is the sort of leader of the prisoners, I think he's excellent in it. And I know some people have problems with the fact that he fist fights the alien at one point. I don't. It's actually one of the high points of the movie for me. It's like one of the only bits where I'm like, oh, that's epic. You know, like this guy's like, you know, realises that, you know, see, this is something that isn't conveyed very, very strongly at the end of the film. When the alien is following them, he's following Charles S. Dutton's character and Ripley. The only reason he's doing that is because he thinks it's when he grabs Sigourney Weaver, and the alien, because Sigourney Weaver's got the Queen alien in her, the alien wants to protect her, so she thinks she's under attack. So that's why she follows, the alien follows him. And I think that I just thought it was really cool that when they're in the lead refinery, the lead works rather, he goes to climb up to get out with Sigourney Weaver and realises that the alien's still following them to try to protect the Queen alien, and so he drops down so that it doesn't think that she's in danger and when it can get to him. And I thought that was really awesome, you know, where he took off his glasses and then, you know, just went to town with it. You know, I really enjoyed that bit. People think it's silly and stupid. I don't think that's stupid at all. You know, I think that's awesome. You know, I mean, I like stuff like that. Like, there's a scene in Dog Soldiers, which is a sort of cult favourite of mine, where a character goes toe to toe with a werewolf when he has absolutely no chance of winning, you know. But it's like fun, it's like cool, you know, to see someone actually do that, you know. It's like, it's the only sort of heroic moment really that you see in the film. I suppose you could say all the prisoners are heroes in a way, but it's the true heroic moment of the film, to me. And so Charles S. Dutton was really good in that role, but the problem with that scene is that once the alien is then doused in lead, it jumps out and it's as if then it's trying to get Ripley to kill her. It kind of feels that way, and it's kind of like, doesn't make any sense why it's still chasing Ripley, really, if you think about it, because she's got the queen alien inside her, so it's just wanting her to go about her business until the queen alien sort of drops out. But anyway, not drops out, you know, she doesn't give birth to it, you know what I mean. I think it's interesting that in the assembly cut, I think they take out the chestburster when Ripley's fallen into the lava. They don't, you know, and I think it's a really iconic image, I think, when Ripley's fallen into the lead, holding the queen alien that's broken out of her chest. But I think maybe some people felt that, you know, you see how much she's terrified of that in Aliens, and maybe that, you know, you don't really want the character to go out like that. As I said before, the film is incredibly bleak, and, you know, it's funny because it's a film that I find quite draining to watch, like I said, but it is a film that I return to, you know. And I think ever since Alien 3 was released, there's probably not been a year that's passed that I've not watched it at least once or twice, you know. It is a film that I watch, and I changed my opinion about it quite a bit. It's extremely divisive as a film, and it's divisive even with me, because when I think about the film, I think of it as a slap in the face to Aliens, right? And then when I watch it, I think, you know, this is actually a really, really well made movie, and it's just so bleak, but, you know, I enjoy it when I'm watching it. So that's why I kind of try and take Alien 3 as its sort of own standalone piece, but it is emotional when, you know, Ripley's, you know, sacrificing herself. And I actually think the most emotional point in the film is when the score comes in, and it's brilliantly done. Ripley's died, and it cuts to a shot in outer space, and you see the sun coming out from the behind the planet, or the planet coming around the sun, and, you know, it's kind of like, that's like the only thing where it's trying to say, like, oh, there's a positive spin to this movie, you know, that these people have all sacrificed themselves for, you know, to try and make sure this creature doesn't get into the hands of the company. But I can still understand why a lot of people don't like it. I think it's more popular in Europe than it is in America. But I think a lot of that may be just down to the fact that people in Europe are more used to seeing people from different areas in England with regional accents, and that's not sort of as big an issue. You see, it's not a problem for us listening to American accents because we hear them all the time. But, you know, a lot of Americans don't hear the different accents from over here all the time because they maybe don't get all, you know, the television programs we make aren't as successful over there. I mean, you get a few like The Office and stuff like that, but, you know, we're always getting American films, so we're used to just hearing what Americans sound like, and that's probably why some people find it difficult to understand me, because they're not used to hearing this accent. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked and it's getting late, so I think I should wrap this up. In the end, Alien 3 is an incredibly memorable film, and it provoked an extreme reaction from its audience. It's one that is still debated. It's one that still manages to elicit, you know, all sorts of arguments from the fan base. And I think if something's as memorable as that, you know, there must be something worthwhile about it. You know, there must be something worthwhile about it. And like I say, I think if you look at the artistry of the film, everyone that worked on that film, considering they were making it without a script, I think they did a damn fine job. I think it's just that Vincent Ward's idea, the man who was going to direct it before David Fincher, his idea I think was even more interesting. I would actually have loved to have seen that. It was the idea that the prisoners were monks and they were on this sort of wooden constructed planet, and there was the religious questions of the alien creature. That was a much bigger part of the film. I'd much rather seen that, but his script I think was the one that introduced the idea that Ripley would die and that Newton Hicks were dead right away, and that was kept. And I think as soon as they decided that that was where they were going with it, I think they made a rod for their own back in a lot of ways. And if, as much as I do admire this film, and I do really like it actually, as a personal apocalyptic tale, I would hate for them to go back and remake Alien or Aliens, but if someone said, do you know what, we're going to recast and we're going to make a film that takes place after Aliens, like a sort of remake of Alien 3, maybe with a different story, much like they did with Superman Returns. Superman Returns is set after Superman 2, it sort of discounts Superman 3 and 4 as if it didn't happen. I wouldn't mind if someone actually attempted that. Seeing someone else play Ripley might be difficult, but you know, I would be up for that. You know, seeing that, and I think a lot of the fans would be up for that as well. But instead, we're getting, well, Prometheus. Is it an alien film? Is it not an alien film? Well, we don't know yet. But let's find out. But it's good to see that Ridley Scott's back involved anyway. So Alien 3. I'm sorry, I've really been sort of like just been ponderous with this video review this time. I mean, I don't know how long this will be, an hour maybe, God knows. If you've watched all of it, God bless you. Alien 3, definitely check it out. And if you haven't watched it in years and you're still disappointed in it, check it out and give it another go, and just try to be a little bit more open-minded with it, because it is a good film. Oh, and remember, check out the forums below, the area shifty button, and talk to us about the different films that you like and love, and keep the comments coming in, and thanks for watching. Good night.